Veneto region. Veneto is a region of Italy in the northeast. It's quite famous for tough workers, so we thought it could be a great territory where to investigate this issue. And I'm here to represent the Italian Disability Management Federation. It is a professional association that has the aim to connect and represent all professionals operating as disability managers, as well as federate the disability managers, as well as diversity and inclusion managers in Italy. It was founded in 2020. I am one of the founders and also a member of the board of directors, let's say. And we have almost 80 members nowadays after 2 years. We are still young, but we are growing up quite fast. Our members have multiple professional backgrounds and comes from various parts of Italy, so we have a good representation. Actually, we are managing many projects. As you see, a big project concerning reasonable accommodations and involving the creation of a free online portal. It's very similar to askjan.org, if you know it or are familiar, but also trainings and other activities concerning disability management. So how was the research conducted and which was the scope of work? The research we conducted, first of all, was part of a broader project which we had with, thanks to the support of the network of employment centers of the Veneto region, and which also involved a series of trainings, in particular 4 laboratories that we were granting to companies and public entities and professionals working in the Veneto region. So before the trainings taking place, we submitted a questionnaire that they could fill in, and with 3 main objectives. First of all, understand which are the major issues and criticalities that are faced while employing and managing persons with disabilities at work. Second was to perceive the effectiveness of the disability manager as a professional, which has been introduced in Italy only in recent times, and therefore try to understand how companies and public entities are perceiving these figures as a possible solution also for managing disability, as well as understand which topics and subject matters company feels would be more important for them to be trained on concerning disability management at workplace. Who were the participants? Total participants 183. Most of them came from the private sector, and all the participants had different roles within the respective organization, but the majority came from the human resource sector, as well as consultancy on employment and labor activity issues. So basically HR. We also had a little group of managerial or executive positions. This we think must grow, but at least we had some. So the first question we asked them is the reason why they had employed persons with disabilities. As you see, the majority still is connected to mandatory legislation that mandates to include a certain number of employees with disabilities. We have a quota system. I'm sure quite most of your countries have the same. And as you see, it still plays a big part in this process. There is the willingness also to create a more inclusive or diverse environment. a very little percentage saying that they included persons with disability because the person was matching the position, I mean, regardless of the disability. So there's still a long way to make the process inclusive. Then we asked them to evaluate different experiences of disability inclusion according to these 4 assessment criteria. So demanding, instructive, problematic, and stimulating. The most found that different experiences were stimulating, but a similar percentage said they were demanding. Few said it was problematic, and then we investigated why it was problematic with an open question on the reason why it was problematic. And then we divided the answer we received in 8 different clusters because the answers were very similar and matching these clusters. Issues more connected to strictly management of the person with disability within the workplace, issues connected to relationship or communication, the attitude of the person with disability, the disability itself, the lack of support from the network available, productivity of the person with disability, matching, and the lack of knowledge or effective organization of the entity or the company. As you can see, these are all the answers we received. The majority appears still to blame the problem on the person with disability, towards the attitude, towards the disability itself, towards the lack of productivity. Someone is saying the second issue, second reason of the problematic experience is the lack of support from the network. But some companies are also considering the fact that they do not have the right knowledge on how to manage disability within the workplace. Which are the issues that companies feel are most hampering the most the individuals with disabilities within their organization? Again, we find a sort of blaming attitude on the person, has limitations that are self-perceived by employees with disabilities themselves, stay on the top side, together with the need for support or practical difficulties, relational difficulties, productivity difficulties. While, for example, discrimination and bias that the individual with disabilities may face at workplace are very low percentage, together with impact of therapies and consequences of the behavior and attitude of other persons. So companies appear not to be very empathic, for sure, and not to perceive discriminations or biases or how this can impact on the person and on an effective inclusion. Then, which are the issues that are hampering disability inclusion and are relating to the company and not on the individuals? Again, we see that, for example, the biopsychosociological concept of disability appears not to have been very highly acknowledged by companies. Has, for example, barriers seems to be not that much valued, is, for example, other kinds of more technical issues connected to management or the lack of knowledge of disability, for example. We will see later how this data does not match with other data we collected with the question that will follow. Again, negativity of employers and colleagues also plays a very low role in this process. Which are the solutions that companies feel could be the most effective for improving disability inclusion within the workplace? For example, this was a question for us to investigate how they perceive the role of a disability manager And this is quite low, let's say. Consultancy of a disability manager was not the top solution companies are considering. While, for example, training of the whole company got a much higher percentage. So it seems like companies are considering inclusion as a more collective attitude that the whole company must have, rather than having a professional that can act as a consultant for them. We don't know actually if this is due also to the fact that Italy is not accustomed to have professionals experienced in the disability field yet. Also because the disability manager was introduced in very recent time, as I was saying. And which are the topics and subject matters that companies feel are more important for their knowledge? As we have seen, the lack of knowledge was considered quite a big issue that companies are recognizing, but it is interesting to see that when it comes to selecting topics or subject matters, they prefer something more general or maybe more appealing, such as diversity and inclusion or inclusive management, while more technical and practical subject matters, such as types of disabilities or discriminations or accessibility, which are very important for inclusive to take place in an effective way, were valued at a much lower percentage. They are also, companies seems to be also very concerned with legal duties and obligations concerning the famous quota system I was telling you before. So these are some of the outcomes of the research. I've run a little bit faster, but I wanted to be sure that you could see all the research there were many questions, and I hope you will receive the slide so we can maybe have a chat and discuss them better, for sure. And I don't know if you have any question. Yes.
Just one question. In the beginning, you showed us a slide with the number of companies that had somebody as an employee with a disability. Can you show that again? Because
Yes.
I was at that number.
This one? Number of employees with disabilities that, yes. The majority of participants has a high percentage of employees with disabilities, equal to 7% of employees. This is the quota applying to all companies and entities having more than 50 employees.
Yeah.
Okay. Because in Italy, the quota starts from 15 employees. So from 15 employees to 35, you have to hire one employee with disability. From 36 to 50, you have to hire 2 employees with disability. And starting from 50 employees, 7% of employees must have a disability certified. Yes.
So maybe I missed it, but so what's defined as a disability? Because what's defined as a disability? I can imagine that some people are kind of pushed to report having a disability to actually reach the quota, or is that like how do you?
No, we have a certificate. The National Institute, the Italian National Institute issued a certificate. You must have a percentage of disability equal to 46 or more to be eligible for the quota system. I don't know whether I answered.
Yeah, well, then 7% is quite a bit, right? If you have 50 employees, then that's like 4.
Yes.
have you looked at your certified disability management professionals being able to provide some of that training that the employers are looking for? Like, is that part of a strategy that you might use?
Yes, I mean, yes and no. Yes, because we wanted to, I mean, as I said, the research was part of a project involving trainings to employees, to employers, and etc. We wanted to see which were the interesting topics that they were considering, but for example, we do not agree with the priorities
Right. Yeah.
they found.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, we will take it into account, but I mean, some things we need to be more, some issues we think need to be more exploited. For example, we have a problem with reasonable accommodations. Reasonable accommodations seems not to be quite that much valued as a subject matter to be trained on. This is talking with companies after that we did the training. We found out that this is not considered a big issue because companies tend to hire persons with disability by making them in very low, let's say, professional qualities, so they don't think reasonable accommodation can be an option, actually.
Well, and it's actually linked to your legal union obligations.
But, no, in fact,
Which one's more important to you?
Yeah, and it's linked also to discrimination, and it's linked to fines that the company may have. We had already planned our trainings before the questionnaire went on, and we did our trainings involving all these subject matters, actually, and they liked it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.